Going on, guys? JD's Custom Buggies. I've been tripping over this thing on the floor for a little bit, so I figured I'd take the opportunity to do what I intended to do with it and get it off the floor so I'd stop tripping over it. So I'm going to put Luna on the floor here, and I'll show you what we got. So this motor here might be unique to some. It is a form of a GY6. This is the motor that is currently coming in the Trailmaster Taurus 200 golf cart looking side-by-side thing. Looking at the motor's designation, it is a XY163 QML. So I'm assuming that the spacing is different than your normal GY6. It's got a 63mm piston in it, I'm assuming, from the number, and it's got QML stud spacing. Now, you're wondering why there's half a motor here. The reason why I got this motor, my guys at Trailmaster were good enough to basically give this to me. It was damaged in shipping. Apparently it was a warranty motor or something. They shipped it out. UPS played football with it and broke the case. So what's unique about it is that, so the case would fit like this. It has a divorce transmission. So it's got a separate transmission, I don't know what you want to call it, unit, module, whatever. Obviously here's the seal for the shaft, or here's the hole for the shaft, and that transmission, I'm assuming, and I haven't seen it fully assembled, I'm assuming that that transmission bolts to these three holes here and somehow to the frame. So this got broken off. There's also some other damage to the motor. The dipstick over here got snapped. That shouldn't be an issue to get out. But telling them what I wanted to do, and after seeing the video on the QMK motor, this opportunity, they gave me a call and asked me if I'd be interested in taking this and maybe doing a video on this, and I'm like, great, that'd be awesome. This is how I learned stuff too. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it apart, and I'm going to tell you everything that I can see by eye that's different about this motor, besides the obvious divorce transmission deal, you know, compared to your normal GY6, or you know, at this point, what the difference is between GY6, you know, AK's, the QMK, and the QML. Now, I don't know. I've known some QMLs. They have a balance shaft in them. Don't have much experience with the motors myself. I try to stay away from them. It's not something I would run in my motor. But you know, taking apart the QMK, we figured out how to put a camshaft in the cam holder. We figured out how to make a stroker crank for that particular motor. So this is kind of helpful, and the only way I'm going to learn is by, you know, when new stuff comes out, is take it apart and share it. So we shall start. Now, I just checked the oil. There doesn't seem to be any oil in this motor. First thing, the shrouds look very typical. There's nothing, you know, they look like GY6 AK shrouds, with a PCV, you know, the emissions head PCV valve there. You can see it's cut out. The shrouds are cut out for that. A lot of the newer heads, like the performance heads that I sell, they have the PVC casting, but there's no, you know, it's blocked off. And pretty much what I am gathering from this is that these newer heads are using the castings from the, you know, the emissions castings, because the emissions castings are probably the only thing that's left. Stay here, doggy. So I'm just wondering, because of emissions here in the country, to bring these over, that, you know, scooters and whatnot need this kind of apparatus to get them through, through customs and whatnot. So when you see performance head, like the NCY head is like that, the Naraku, the SSPG, I'm not sure about the Tata stuff, but you'll notice that it's got the cutout for it, and it needs like the emission shrouds, but it doesn't have the emission stuff. It seems like the casting is blocked off, and that's why. It's just, they're using the casting to make the performance heads, because, you know, it's just cheaper to use one casting for everything. So we'll start off by taking this off. It should just come off with these 2 bolts removed. If I use the right socket. What do I got here? Oh, it's a 9mm, that's why. Let's see what I got. There's a shorty. Oh, you know what? You know what? Second. I'm gonna cry in a second. So we're gonna take this off, and we're gonna take the valve cover bolts off, and that should all come off in one chunk. Now the valve cover looks a little different as far as the bolt hole spacing. There she is. Okay. Yes. I don't even need to grab another valve cover to compare with, but yeah, I can just tell by the gasket. Normal GY6 gasket's got a big D to it. This actually has the indent for the PCV valve, and so the gasket's totally different, and so is the valve cover. So very specific. Like I said, none of the stuff I'm building uses this, and I don't work on a lot of modern scooters, so anything that would have this is kind of new to me too. Alright, next we get the shrouds off and the intake. Intake boot looks pretty normal. Gotta get this off so we can get the shrouds off. It's easy to, it's like there's only half a motor, it's easy to handle. And I think I'm about to take back what I said about the shroud in a second, as soon as I can get this off. Well, apparently on these machines they put a little heat shield sticker on there. So top shroud, there's our bottom shroud, and the gasket for the PCV valve. So put this here. I'm just taking a look for my own benefit. So there's the GY6 rocker bridge, and that'll give you an idea of the difference in the spacing. So she doesn't really come close. So that's what we got going on there as far as the spacing goes. So we'll pull it apart and see what other things we can find. Alright. 12 or 13. It's gonna be 13. Let's grab a couple blocks of wood, so blocks of wood to hold it up. Now apparently she's got an oil cooler, because there's oil cooler ports down here at the bottom. Like I said, I have yet to lay eyes on this machine as a whole. I wonder what the little bracket here is for. Whoops. I'm not certain. Not quite certain what the purpose that thing serves. This is something. That's a new one by me. That's something I'd probably have to look up and see if I can find a spec sheet or a part sheet and see what they call it, and then come to my own conclusions. Alright, so I'm going to take off the cam temperature. I always break the screw loose when it's on the motor, because sometimes it's hard to hold it in your hand and loosen it up, or you end up having to stick it in the vise or something. So I just got into the habit of loosening the thing up before I take it off. The gasket on this is in good shape. And get the wires. What I'm curious about is two things. A, I noticed on the QMK, because it had that cam assembly where the cam and everything's kind of contained and just plops on the top of the head, the rockers were different. And even though the lobes lined up and everything, but the rockers are actually shorter. This looks a little more normal to me, but let's see if I can pull something out to compare with. Just your basic Trailmaster stock cam. Well, it does have a different insignia on it. Let's get another cam out and just check the spacing and the width. It doesn't matter what it is, but more for comparison's sake. The bearings look to be the same. I mean, theoretically. And that's just a regular old A9 cam that I just picked up, so I'm going to try and slip it in here. I'm not timing it or anything, I just want to see if it fit. So, I mean, it looks like you can do cam swaps on this if you're so inclined. That shouldn't be an issue. Everything seems to fit just like normal GY6 stuff there. This one dowel pin is just sticky. So if you wanted to make your Taurus a little more pep and you wanted to do a cam swap, I don't see there being a problem with that. The cam pretty much looks like a standard spare. So, cam for this guy. Alright. No, as far as the cam guides and whatnot, they look to be standard style cam guides. There's a Allen bolt there like a regular GY6. There's no access panel like on the Trailmaster 150 motor. So this is going to be one of those motors that if you have to change a cam chain or anything like that, you are going to be splitting cases on this motor. Gotta take the head. Lay it down. Oh. Yeah. Jump that piece off. This motor should be fresh, never run. And yeah, she's clean and new. So, I mean, the major story here, from what I can tell, is your stud spacing is going to be completely different. So, if you are, you're not putting a performance head of any kind at this point, your best route is to give this a good porting, you know, clean it up, massage it, and open it up a little bit. Other than that, height-wise and everything else, I mean, same deck. And in fact, here's a good example of what I was talking about. That one's open. And, you know, is it emissions deal? Now you can use a block off. You can completely eliminate the PCV and use the block off plate there. I don't know if there's going to be a benefit or not, but you can see on this casting here where this one's in use and that one's not. And that's typical anymore. Everybody's using pretty much these castings. My curiosity is, do the holes line up? And yeah, they do. So this valve cover may be a little more standard than I thought, except for all the emission stuff right there. But same height, same deck, pretty much a GY6 emissions head with different stud spacing is what we're looking at. Just to verify, open it up. Piston looks a little bigger, so. I know I dropped it. I thought I dropped it in here. From a caliper. That's not the one. It's outside. Let's go take a look. Zero it out. I'm just checking the cylinder board. Yeah, 63. So definitely 63 millimeter piston. Now here's where it's going to kind of get interesting. I'm going to go ahead and yank off the cylinder. Oh, there we go. I was trying to do it without breaking the base gasket, but that didn't work. Okay, head gasket's good. Just gonna leave it on the cylinder for now. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll take out the piston. Question is can you just buy a normal 63 millimeter piston, and will the wrist pin hole line up and everything. Oh, I took my glasses off. Here we go. Alright, so pull the pin right there. A little stubborn. Yeah, that's why there was no, usually they have a little line, you know, a little piece that goes across, you can pull it through in the middle, but not this one. They give you a little groove in there to get a pair of pliers, but in reality I don't have to take this one out. You can pop it out from that side. A socket that'll fit in there. Yep. Okay. It's actually a dish piston. So what they're trying to, I mean, for ABC reason, this would kind of take away some compression. So I'm gonna leave that there with the wrist pin sitting. Probably gonna have to do this. Okay, for one, let's see if I can get this wrist pin all the way out. For one, this wrist pin here, is it gonna fit? Yes, it does fit. Okay. So we got that there. Where's that stick? Is that the one to clip out? This is the side to clip out. So what I'm gonna try and do. There we go. Alright, so what I'm doing is I'm checking the height from the top of the piston to where the wrist pin goes in. That it's not in a different spot, that it lines up. So this tells me that if you have this motor and you need a piston and rings, I don't see a reason why you can't just order any set of 63 millimeter piston ring kit and basically make it work with this. Okay, the wrist pin seems to fit the piston no problem. So there's nothing different there. So I'm really curious to see crankshaft now. And the reason why I'm that curious is this just a standard crank? I mean, is the only thing different about this motor the stud spacing? So piston seems to be standard fare. So you could put a pretty much, from what I'm seeing here, if you wanted to do something with this motor, give it a little more pep, you can take your stock head, put a block off plate, get rid of the emission stuff. Should be able to fit a stock, or not stock, but you should be able to fit a GY6 performance cam in here. You could probably even get a 63 millimeter flat top piston, and I'll show you what the difference would be. Got an SSPG piston here. I mean, it'll be another cast piston, but don't want to rip the bag. Clips or piston, but I'm trying to get to the point where I can kind of display the difference here. So that indent in this piston and the stock piston is basically going to decrease compression. This piston here would increase compression. So in my opinion, this piston would be an upgrade. Okay. So now, unless they are, I'm going to open the piston now, and this is why. Most QML motors that come in like the Candies and Dong Fangs aren't a true 63 millimeter. They are 62.5 millimeter. So what I want to see, are we missing 0.5 millimeter? This would be the best way to find out. Well, let's take all I just said back now, and this is why we're doing this. Alright, so I guess if we're making rules, because nobody told us the rules, that a 63 QML, even though 63 designates it should have a 63 millimeter piston, and we know how the Chinese like to round up. The QMLs, by rule, have a different stud spacing, and are always, apparently to this point, from what I can tell, 62 millimeter pistons, so they're not a true 63 millimeter piston. So, you still go with the cam, you can still port and polish the head, but the flat top piston might be an issue. At least sticking one from, a performance piston from a GY6. Alright, and that just dawned on me because I have, dealt with people and helped them find QML stuff for their dumb fangs and candies, and found out through that they are 62.5 millimeter pistons. So it's not a true 63, it's a 62.5, which is no big deal, except for the fact that my main concern, or my main bitch, I guess you could say, about the QML motor is they almost make it impossible to upgrade. So if you can't put it is basically you're stuck ordering the parts from the manufacturer all the time. But yes, you can block this off. Yes, you can port and polish this. Yes, apparently you can use a cam. All right. So I'll move this here. Yeah, because that piston definitely wants to slide in there. Alright, I guess we are going to just go ahead and take off this base gasket, because we are going to get down into the cases now. And what I don't know, and what I can't guarantee, or what I can't compare with, because I don't have a regular, I don't have a dumb bang or a candy QMK. Now, what I'm learning for myself is, or what I'm suspecting is, that I can probably order QML stuff from Trailmaster now, because I'm a Trailmaster dealer, and might be able to help the people out who have, all the people that I'm like, you have to go to Candy, you have to go wherever you bought it. Now this kind of opens it up to where I could possibly help those people out who need this kind of stuff. So, and that's where it's helpful to me. I knock the fan off. Open the door and see what the puppy's doing. Oh, you want to come in? Not yet. Okay. Kids today. I know I pulled the 17 and I gotta grab the 5-wheel puller. Out. What do I do with it? something different now. Now I know the QMKs come, I want to say the 200 motors with the EFI, and that's the other thing. I got to verify if this is the EFI motor or not. I'm not even sure. I would imagine it is. The Taurus is a fairly new model, and that seems to be the direction that they are going. So I'm going to assume that it's an EFI model, in which case that is why you got such a big stator on there. So this is part of the course. I believe the 200s with EFI also had the same stator. And I forget what pole it is. I want to say is it 18 pole? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Yeah, 18 pole stator. Definitely a DC system because there's no AC power wire on this thing anywhere. All you have is the trigger and your 3 charging wires, 3-stage chart. So it means the rectifier for this isn't your part of the course GY6 with an 8-pole or 6-pole stator. Everything about it's got 3-phase charging system, so pretty much going to be unique to this guy here. All right, so I'm going to make a detour here. Got the one screw off. I had to use an impact driver to do it. So apparently they take these hard ass screws and put them on there and Loctite them. When I tried to use the impact driver on the other side, it broke the bit. So then I tried an extractor and I couldn't get a good enough grab. Tried to drill it. It barely wants to drill. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull all this off together. I was trying to get it off one piece at a time, but being off the motor and I can get a level, I might be able to do something with it, but the way it sits right here is just too awkward. So I'm just going to knock these off. Okay. I'm just checking to see if the bolts line up or if everything lines up on this thing. That's just a normal piece. Yeah. So, nothing special about that guy right there. The only 2 special case pieces that we're talking about is basically the 2 halves that for the cylinder, only because you need the matching stud spacing. The rest of the pieces are pretty much the same. My bad. Standard starter clutch, as far as I can tell. Down to 3 sprags. Trailmasters actually use 20 sprag on the 150s. Down to 3 sprags on this one, which is pretty much a normal starter clutch. The starter gear, or the idler gear, starter clutch, probably the oil pump. Yeah, I don't see nothing different about that. Two more bolts, and we look at the crank. Keep the motor like that for the oil. I didn't take off the starter, but that's fine. Pretty much what I didn't want to do. Alright. There we go. Now, center gasket. See nothing different. So your unique gaskets for all the cases at this point seems to be just basin head gasket. Crankshaft. Okay, so all my oil's right there. Cam chain. Let's take a look. Grab a clean rag from my hand. Okay, what I'm pulling out is normal GY6 crankshaft. I didn't get it sent with clutches to me, but if I'm not mistaken, talking to my Trailmaster guy, he did say that there is a spacer that goes on there, and the crank is papered for a spacer, like a kickstart gear. In fact, I think I had him send me the spacers, and I didn't put two and two together. This motor's been sitting that long that I just haven't had the chance to, kind of put two and two. So here's our normal GY6 crankshaft, and from what I can tell, that's part of the course. It's just, it seems pretty stock and standard to me. The only thing I can see, and it's by eye, and I'm going to grab the caliper, is how far does this taper go out? Like the distance. Something looks a little different from one to the next by eye. But we'll get the caliper out and basically judge from that. Alright, so that's our standard one. So what I'm going to do is measure from the kickstart gear. Make sure I'm zeroed out. Yep. So I'm going from the kickstart gear to the end of my taper with my glasses on so I can see what the heck I'm doing. And I'm going to say it's around 22.5 millimeters. And if we go over here, and I move it and I just rested it up against there. So that looks exactly the same to me. Bearings are both the same size, unlike every other Trailmaster crank I've seen so far. Well, not true. QMK, I believe, was same size bearings, but it had a step instead of a taper because there's no spacer or kickstart gear. So, in my opinion, it's a normal GY6 crank. Good news about that is if I'm right, I guarantee if I call Trailmaster, it's probably a little more pricey for a Taurus crank than it would be for this. So if I'm right, I've already got them in stock, and they really don't cost that much money. I believe they retail for like $55 or $59. Give you an example, QMK crank and the new 200 motors and the 150 crank are $100 plus. They're like, you know, $119.99 or something like that. So these cranks are literally half the price. So I'm going to do a little more investigating on that. But yes, by eye, I can't see one thing, and then it just dawned on me while I'm sitting here talking about it that that he had told me about the spacer that takes the place of a kickstart gear, which is basically the same width as a kickstart gear, but isn't a kickstart gear. It's just basically a standalone spacer that's tapered that slides right on. So I was curious enough that I'm like, yeah, send me those. I want to see those. And we got some. And I mean, I think we actually weighed them and they were lighter than kickstart gear. So maybe think about putting them on race motors and stuff, a little less rotating weight. But that is it. So I'm going to clean up my mess tomorrow because my puppy's wanting it and wants to probably go home and eat. So as far as anything different, besides the obvious divorce transmission deal, you know, divorce gearbox deal, I know for a fact, I don't know the exact measurement, it's not a 743 belt because the case, the distance is a lot shorter. I want to say that the belt is somewhere in the 6s. I don't remember off the top of my head. I believe I called him, he gave me a number and I looked it up or something. So other than that, the only thing different about this particular QML motor that I can see is your case halves, because your stud spacing. This is a normal case half with an oil cooler passage, but because of the stud spacing, you have to, you know, they have to mate. You can't just use like a regular GY6 because you won't, the stud holes are different. So besides these two pieces here in your divorce transmission deal, your cylinder, your head because of the stud spacing, and the piston in the cylinder because it's 62.5 instead of 63. That's what differentiates it from everything regular GY6. What differentiates this from the Candy and the Dung Fang QML, I do not know, because I've seen one of them have like a counterbalance shaft, which I've seen in like Razor 170s had a counterbalance shaft that runs off the crankshaft or whatever. Keeps the motor to run smoother. This does not have that. This is like this is basically like a GY6 with a QMK stud spacing. I'm hoping and I'm assuming that the top end will work on the others, but as far as everything else in the motor, it seems to be more GY6 than some of the stuff I've seen posted and talked about with the other QMLs. So, whereas, like I said, the main difference is the counterbalance shaft and all that. So, that's it. Hopefully this is helpful to you guys. I know it's a new motor platform altogether. I mean, the Taurus has only been out for a couple of years. And this motor platform, I don't know if it's found on anything else, and I doubt Trailmaster invented it. Because, you know, these guys, they copy everything off of everybody else. But, that being said, as far as the popular brands of like the go-kart and buggy companies or whatever, I know that this is the first one that I've heard of, that with the divorce transmission. So hopefully this helps all of you guys out. It definitely helped me. Like, I have no problem working on one of these now that I've seen it. You know, I don't have to second guess. Like I said, there's only a couple of distinct differences, and that's basically in parts, not the way it's put together. So that's it. I'm gonna clean my mess up tomorrow, go home, and enjoy life. And if you need parts, go to gotbuggies.com. If you like what you see, hit the like button. And if you have any questions, you know, leave them in the comment section. If you haven't already, subscribe.